Welcome to the YouTube channel of the Portugal-Hong Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On this inaugural episode, we've had the Vice President of the Chamber, Mr. Gonçalo Ferreira Ramos, interviewing Mr. Ambrose. Mr. Ambrose was not only a long-time companion of Dr. Stanley, but he is also the current Honorary Consul of Portugal in Hong Kong. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Dr. So, thank you very much for having us here.
Pleasure.
Our condolences, of course, for the passing of Dr. Ho, and thank you for taking time to help us with this small documentary. So earlier we were talking when you first met Dr. Ho and how it happened. So you were 30 years his junior, and you start working for one of his companies, Untitled Shipping. So if you could tell us a bit how you end up meeting or most important, working with Dr. Ho.
Well, I graduated from the University of Hong Kong in '73. The first job that I have was with 3M Far East. And after 2 years, I think that I need to have a professional qualification. That's why I studied this charter secretary. At that time, Untitled Shipping tries to recruit one assistant charter secretary, so I applied for the job. That's how I joined Untitled. At that time, Dr. Stanley Ho interviewed me.
So that was the first
so
time.
it's the first time a very good impression of him, even though he just returned from a trip in Europe. So the interview was very short, but I think that I was not successful because I think he was very busy. I only interviewed him for about 5 minutes. He said, "Oh, I'll let you know." Then later on, I got the job as an assistant secretary in Untitled Shipping. That's how I started with the Untitled Group, and later on with STDM.
Okay. So later on, so because even as STDM, you mentioned that you start working at Gran Lisboa, and then eventually you moved to his office, to Dr. So's.
Yes,
Dr. Ho.
yes. I worked in Untitled Shipping for a short period of time, and then I was transferred to Macau, Casino Lisboa, also for a very brief time, about 2 years. Then I was transferred back to his office, personal office. Then I work as one of his assistants.
Okay, so it's then that your contact with him
Started in '79. Basically, I was in his office.
So of course, with the years, he developed, but you were very professionally, of course, very close to him as his assistant, but also personally, I guess that also evolved. So. What kind of relationship you had, of course, apart from the professional side, what you...
Well, of course, being his assistant, then I had the chance of getting involved in all sorts of areas that he also get involved. So I accompany him to various meetings and also dealing with all matters that he used to deal with. So it's a lot to learn on the spot also.
Sure. I can imagine.
Yeah.
So with the monopoly of the gaming in Macau, which of course you were still very much involved because this lasted until 2001. In around the 80s, early 80s, became the investment in Portugal. So. Can you explain us a little bit, because many people will not know, the relationship of Dr. Ho with Portugal? So of course, with him fleeing Hong Kong in the beginning of the war, of the Japanese invasion. So if you could tell us, take us through that.
Yeah. Well, just very briefly, he also studied in the University of Hong Kong. But he did not graduate because of the Second World War. Then he went to Macau and joined a company in a barter arrangement. And later on, he started his own business. And of course, he met his first wife in Macau and got married. And later on, when the Macau casino operation monopoly was up for retender again, he joined with some of his friends, namely Henry Falk, who is also very famous. Then they submitted a bid, and eventually they won in 1962. Then he started having this monopoly starting in 62. Of course, 62, I was only a small boy. I only joined the company in 75. And then later on in 79, I joined his own office. I was very privileged because at that time the monopoly of the casino license was to be reviewed every 5 years. So I have the chance of preparing and also participate in following up all this negotiation up to when the monopoly expired in 2001. We have the liberalization of the casino license again. And at that time, of course, Dr. Ho started to form this SJM, which is a subsidiary of SDDM, to bid for another license. Now, during this monopoly period from 62 to 2001, of course, the income from the casino was very good, and he started investing both in Macau, China, and also in Portugal.
And then of course the involvement with Portugal was, of course, Macau was at the time under the Portuguese and also because of the family, mainly because of that, but also I would guess from family ties even.
Naturally, yes. In 62, he got this monopoly and then starts building the empire there. And he, of course, when he was successful in the tendering, he said that our company is not merely a gaming company. We are going to bring, prosperity and also increase the standard of living in Macau people. So he did that, and he delivered all this when the monopoly was over.
He shaped Macau. He made it Macau prosper and its people prosper. So
that's correct. Yeah.
So on that note, how do you think? Of course, it's obvious. It will be obvious for us, but for other people that don't know him so well or don't know his story so well, how do you think Dr. Ho will be remembered? How you will remember him, and hope that others will. So how do you think it will?
Well, Dr. Ho, as people see him, he is very humorous, is always very generous, and very straightforward when he speaks to people. So, and of course with his own charisma as well. People in Macau, because many walks of life of people that benefit from the operation of SDDM there. So people will always remember him because he really bring prosperity to Macau and upgrade the standard of living in Macau. He donated a lot in support of education, in terms of culture, in terms of giving scholarships to people in Macau, and also start the operation and the establishment of the Macau University. So, people will remember him as a humorous person and remember him as a man who can make deals and always have solutions to problems. He'll never accept no as an answer to all these obstacles that's facing him and also challenges. He's a man always like to accept challenges, and he is a man always deliver when he promises something.
But on that note of being very humorous, before you told me about the episode that he would do it regularly for the Chinese New Year. So he'll introduce the horoscope. So if you could tell us that story of that early event that
Well, it becomes a tradition of SDDM and later on SJM is that we, every year during the Chinese New Year Eve, we have a traditional dinner inviting all dignitaries, the government officials and the chief executive, and before he was the governor, that come to the party. And he always have a keynote speech there where he work on the Chinese zodiac, the horoscope of the Chinese, and telling jokes about the current year, whether this is good for businessmen and whether this is good for husbands, wives, or whether this is good for marriage, and making funs and jokes about this. And everybody seems to enjoy these speeches. And some people even keep the speeches every year and to listen to that for their own enjoyment.
That's very nice. He was known as an avid sportsman, so Hong Kong champion in his youth, and then later on, even already in his 80s, he kept on winning those senior tournaments, and also well known as a hunter, and he would also hunt in Portugal, which is also very common to I guess here in Macau there was an episode that we were told, because part of China in the close to Zhuhai there was an area where it was allowed to hunt, so people from Macau would cross the border and go hunt and then come back with their trophies. Yeah. He was also a great ball dancer. So do you remember these episodes?
Oh yes, of course. Well, he is a very disciplined person, so every day he exercises, and these hobbies you just mentioned is one of his hobbies. He liked to play tennis. He played double naturally, not single, and also do hunting and ballroom dancing. He's very well known for ballroom dancing. Everybody liked to watch him ballroom dancing. He hunts before he hunts even in Hong Kong in new territories. Wow. At that time, back in 30 years ago, I think he's allowed to hunt there. Yeah. And later on, it was not allowed to hunt in Hong Kong. Then he went to Zhongshan, next to Macau, that still allow hunting. And when he visited Portugal, to have a look at his investments there, he also found the time to do some hunting in Portugal as well.
So apart from business, going to Portugal was of course there is a sad memory in his life about Portugal when he loses his son and daughter-in-law. But for him to go to Portugal, apart from business, was also something that he looks for, or would you say?
Oh yes, well, because he has many friends. He has many Portuguese friends, and every year I think he goes there once or twice a year. Of course, we have these board meetings and also annual general meeting, and he also finds the time to visit and to renew the relationship and his friendship with those people that retired in Portugal and Lisbon. So this is a time, partly holiday, partly business, that he can take some time off to enjoy some hunting and renew old friendships there.
So yourself, you play tennis?
Yes, I do. I play tennis as well, but not as good as he is.
And did you play with him? It
happens, yeah. Sometimes, rarely.
Okay.
Rarely, yes, because we are in different slots.
Sure.
Different time slots, yes.
When
you play, I have to work,
Exactly. Someone will have to
to
make sure that the keeps on running.
Right.
So in Macau there is a street with his name with Dr. Ho's name. In Portugal there is also in Cascais. Would you think that there will something more could? Of course, this is two examples that I know in terms of public examples of his importance, of his legacy.
Yes.
Would you think that there will be more than can be done for for everything. I'm sure you would not expect, but he contributed so much. So
I think this is a kind of recognition on Dr. Stanley Ho's contribution to the territory that he lived and to the territories that he has a passion for. I'm very pleased that there are two roads, one in Macau and one in Lisbon, that honor him, which is named after him. So he lived to see that inaugurated. I think this was a great honor done on him as well.
Dr. Ho could speak Portuguese.
Oh yes, yes. He speaks Portuguese, speaks Japanese, Mandarin, and of course Cantonese. English, yes.
Wow,
yes.
so it's
right.
Yeah, that's impressive.
He was quite fluent in Japanese, surprisingly, but there's no surprise because during that time, in the Second World War, when he was in Macau, and he told that he exchanged, lessons with a Japanese person called Saito. Saito teaches him Japanese and he teaches English.
So
Saito during the war,
would be someone that was related to religion because of the Jesuits, or
no. I think related to business
or
yes,
in Macau.
Yeah.
Okay. So very very interesting. In Hong Kong, of course, there was a very big investment in Hong Kong as well on his part after, of course, with the gaming in Macau and everything. But it was mostly in. Of course, there was lots of philanthropy here in Hong Kong as well.
True.
But mostly it was property, right?
Yeah.
The investments that he did.
Well, he also set up one, construction company in Hong Kong. When he came back to Hong Kong shortly after he was in Macau, and before the tendering of the monopoly license in casino operation in Macau, he set up a construction company here, and since 1984, I think he was the president of the Real Estate Developers Association, and remained as president for over 20 years. So he was a very respectable figure in property development in Hong Kong.
I didn't know that.
Right.
I knew that he was in real estate, but didn't understand it even also in the construction.
And for this building that we are sitting in is called the Shun Tak Center. That was in a land exchange with the Hong Kong government, where Dr. Stanley Ho built the terminal here in exchange for the condition for the land to build the Shun Tak Center.
Okay. I'm sure even before the Shun Tak Center, this was already the area where the shipping would
yes,
Macau, steamboats, right? At the time, for a very long
time. Yes, the
ferries,
big ferries. Well, further down there, not on the same spot, but next to this site.
Okay.
There was a terminal there, but is not the same. Scale as this one.
Because even the
we have the hydrofoils there also at that time. Hydrofoils, really? not yet jack foils.
Okay. Because even this area, in terms of the Western market, which is not so far from us.
No, just opposite, across the road.
This was kind of because people would return to Macau. So this was very lively at the time.
Well, nighttime, yes. There is some sort of a flea market. During nighttime, with these street foods that people can come and eat, and then some of the other merchandise that is on sale here.
So try to, of course, of course, beginning to be in a bad way, as he affected everyone. The war, I learned that even his father was well. He was born in a well-off family.
Yes.
But then, of course, with the war,
Yeah.
they lost everything.
Because it was a wrong investment in the shares, as I've seen in his early biography.
Okay.
That the family got broke, and he was poor at that time, so he has to depend on scholarships before he can have an education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he studied in the famous Queen's.
He studied in
College.
Queen's College, and then he got a scholarship to go into Hong Kong University. But unfortunately, because the war broke in, he cannot complete the degree.
Sure.
Then he have to go to Macau.
Yeah.
But this is another, path for him.
Sure. That will eventually brought him everything that he had, that he built.
Right.
Really.
But one thing I think is important to mention that over years that his investment in Macau, his investment in Portugal, it helped build up a very big network, which later on helped in the strengthening of the relationship between China and the Portuguese-speaking countries.
Sure.
See, so through the investment in Portugal, Macau, then we'll be able to help in this respect.
So he was, apart from everything, he was also a great ambassador.
Yes.
In many ways.
Oh, he is a great speaker, as you know. He is a great speaker, and people are very, attracted to what he says.
He was elegant in many ways. Also,
yes,
the
true.
way to speak.
Yes.
So that position so he had a diplomatic position also in terms of.
Well, in doing
helping.
in doing this public diplomacy, I think he's an ideal person in doing that. What they call the public diplomacy.
Because he was involved in at least in Hong Kong I read, but for sure in Macau as well, as a consultant for the negotiations for the handover.
He supported the one country, two system, and support the return of Hong Kong to China and also Macau to China. He was a member of the consultative committee of the Basic Law of Hong Kong, and he was the vice president of the Macau Basic Law Consultative Committee, and also the vice president of the Macau Preparative Committee as well. Yeah. So he helped and contributed to the smooth transfer of sovereignty from Hong Kong to China, and also the return of Macau to China.
I read about Hong Kong. I was not sure about Macau, but of course,
right.
Obviously, you would be the right person to do it. Would there more in now a bit about you, because you told that he was he helped a lot in terms of the scholarships and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that you also doing yourself.
Oh yes, I do.
Of course,
yes.
Through SJM, but also you.
Through
personally.
SJM, and personally, I also, I was very supportive on education for youngsters.
Yeah, with your motto. Lifelong learning.
Yes, lifelong learning. Yeah.
That's true. Because that is part of the legacy that is worthwhile to preserve, and is being done by SJM and you personally.
Yeah, and in Hong Kong, of course, Dr. Stanley Ho donated to his alma mater, the University of Hong Kong, and some of the stadium were named after him, and also named after his father. His father as well.
Did he? Because I've heard in terms of relatives, there was, of course, the most famous one for the average will be Bruce Lee. That he was not blood related, but he was family related.
Very distantly related. Yeah.
I think they would say that because his mother was so maybe second cousin, but she was adopted. She was not blood. It was not the same bloodstream, but he was adopted by an uncle.
Yeah.
An uncle, which was also already half brother of his grandfather. So it's like
I can never make the relationship straight, but I understand that Bruce Lee was distantly related to Stanley. Yeah.
And I'm sure they met. And
I don't know.
No.
I don't know whether they have met.
Okay.
I don't know.
And but also I guess that was closer. His uncle, Sir Robert
Ho Tong?
Ho Tong.
Oh, Sir Robert Ho Tong is his great granduncle.
Great granduncle.
Great granduncle. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
his grandfather, Dr. Ho's grandfather, was the brother of Robert Ho Tong.
Okay.
Yes, brother.
So okay.
They're brothers.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's because of course it was an important figure in Hong Kong.
Oh, very important figure of Hong Kong during the early 20th century.
Following that that mention about the two periods. So
Okay.
Before the handover. So the handover with of course the monopoly only finished in 2001.
Yes.
So 40 years he started, and of course it was won over the years in terms of different in different times. It was public. It was everyone could take it, and of course he was kept. And then the liberalization of gambling. Of course, it was both very different periods. I guess he was more involved with the first one than the second one. Of course, not only because of age-wise, although he was still young in 2001. But would he tell even before you join? Because of course he starts the gambling. You start when you were still 10 years old. So would he talk about stories about old times as it was, or because I guess it was a bit more exciting in a way that was it like that, or he would
Well, I would say for every businessman, if you have a monopoly, of course you would like it very much rather than an open competition. But for Dr. Ho, when the monopoly expires and he knew that it's going to be a competition, he did not reject it. He did not oppose to it. He said, well, competition brings, prosperity and brings upgrading of the product that you are going to give. So he supports it.
Sure.
So he is happy to go for competition, and that's why he led us to submit for the tender. And we got one of the licenses to continue to operate in Macau. In that, with hindsight, we can see that it prospered a lot. This because there are competition, and secondly because the opening up of China in the open door policy and the development of the Chinese economy helped a lot in the prosperity of the gaming industry in Macau. So mainly this is the Chinese market.
Yeah. So it was something. Easy might not be the right word, but the transition was something that was natural, and STDM, then SGM, was prepared and prepared well for it to happen.
Yes, he has also a vision in future. So he bring the company SJM to the main board for listing, and have everything is in a well-organized way, in a professional way. So this will bring us in equal footing with the other, concessionaires that everyone is a listed company.
Sure. Yeah, it was only then that it was because you were involved in the listing.
Yes, we listed the company in 2008.
I only
In 2008, yes.
So this is, of course, SGM Holdings.
SGM Holdings, right.
And SGM Holdings is
a subsidiary of SDDM. SDDM holds a controlling shareholding in SGM Holdings.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We have enough material.
Yeah, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no.
With your time.
Thank you for coming.